Welcome back to the Green Means Go channel. It's your host, me, Special Report here from Green Means Go. As you guys know, I do some home run picks every day, and I don't want to give away my secret sauce necessarily, but I also have said in every video that I don't claim to have a secret sauce. So I do want to show you some things on the back end as it relates to my process, things I'm thinking about, Ballpark Pal, just as I go about this adventure. I got a comment today that meant a lot. And the guy said, you don't have to ask for likes. You deserve them. You're one of the most transparent guys on gambling Twitter, gambling YouTube, sports betting content. And, that's what I set out to do from day one. And so that means a lot when people recognize that. But hey, shameless plug, like the video if you like the video. Here's what I'm going to talk about. My process using Ballpark Pal and then some information I've gathered. So here's how we're going to start this video. I'm going to enlarge this photo for you guys so you can kind of get an idea. This is what the pitching matchups look like under Ballpark Pal. So this is today's game with the Mets against Aaron Nola. So this says Aaron Nola's matchup against Francisco Lindor is an F. It's one of the worst matchups for Aaron Nola. In other words, Lindor has a pretty good opportunity to do well against Nola. Juan Soto is the same. Pete Alonso, slightly worse, but still pretty good. Winker, Mark Vientos. So they're all, first of all, they're all graded on a letter grade for a matchup. And then you also have a number as it relates to home run. The higher the number or higher the percentage, the more likely they are in this instance or this matchup to hit a home run, or I guess I should say for Aaron Nola to allow. So this is not something that I blindly trust, but something that I'm trying to gather data on, which is the purpose of this video, is if we look at Francisco Lindor and an F and a 0.12 home run multiplier, it's pretty good. Like the matchup here is good for Lindor to hit a home run. Now, obviously, we have to factor in the price of what Lindor actually is. If he's plus 200, do I like it? If he's plus 600, do I like it? All of that is not accounted for by Ballpark Pal. That's kind of where I come in and decide these things. But I wanted to test and see, is there any sort of connection to these matchups and then the actual likelihood of the home run? So I'm going to shrink this back down, slide this up here so you can't even read it. And I'm actually going to delete this. I'm going to assume that you know exactly what it is now, so it doesn't even need to be in the way. So what this is, all of this data is the home runs that have been hit this year. So you have the batter, the number of home run that it was, what inning it occurred in. All this stuff is not super important to the conversation. And then I have batter handedness. So Spencer Torkelson is a right-handed batter. The pitcher, in this case, Alex Vesia, is a left-handed pitcher. And then I have the ballpark grade listed. So in Lindor's case, it would have been an F. And then the percentage multiplier, in this case, it would have been 12 or 0.12. Now, if there is an X here, it is because this was not the starting pitcher. I am handicapping these matchups based on the starting pitcher. I don't know what bullpen action we're going to get. So when I look at a guy like Spencer Torkelson, I am looking really at his number and his price and his matchup for the first 5 innings. Now, if he hits one late in the game, that's a bonus for us. But as far as just handicapping goes, yes, I'm accounting for park. Yes, I'm accounting for all of these things. But I am really looking at 5 out of 9 innings against the starting pitcher. How is he going to fare? Because if the starting pitcher goes out and crushes it, the batter may only have 1 or 2 at-bats against a reliever, and, all of that's hard to factor in. Maybe at some point in time I can get to that, but right now I am not there. I need to take things one step at a time, and there's no shame in that. So if there is an X on this list, it was not the starting pitcher. So if we go ahead and sort this by everything that's not an X, all right, I have listed out all of this. So this is like 900 data points. I don't know how many points, whatever it is, however many home runs there have been this year is how many data points. I do this every day. I update this every single day. And I go through and I say, okay, Tommy Edman is a switch hitter. He hit a home run off of Skubal here, which is a left-handed pitcher. Ballpark Pal had it as a D matchup for Skubal, so that's pretty good for Edman. But the home run percentage was .03. That's pretty low. Okay, then we have C for Cedric Mullins, and we have 10. That's pretty good. Anything over 0.1 is pretty good as I take it from Ballpark Pal, right? Then we have down here, holy cow, Aaron Judge hit a home run against Nestor Cortez. It was an F matchup for Cortez and a 24% multiplier. Let me move my head. I apologize. So this is the kind of data that I'm back testing Ballpark Pal on. Now, if I was doing this perfectly, and I'm not, but if I was doing this perfectly, I would do this every day for every batter. And I would see, okay, out of the 600 batters this month that received a D, here is how many actually hit a home run. That's the best way to do this. I do not have the capacity. I don't have the coding skills. I don't have whatever it would take to be able to do that. So I am just working with the home runs that we actually get. So now I'm going to show you some statistics, some data that I did aggregate, and I just want you to see it. So we're going to nerd out a little bit here. So I can increase my face a little bit. So we'll start here with all homers. This is all the homers that have occurred so far out of 4/20/2025. Here is how many righty versus righty matchups have been hit. Righty versus lefty, lefty versus righty, lefty versus lefty, switch versus righty, and switch versus lefty. So you can see that righties versus righties is the number one generator of home runs. This is not just for starting pitchers. This is for every single home run this year. So keep that in mind. 697 total home runs in the 2025 season. So we are sitting at almost 40% are righty on righties. 13% of home runs are righty on lefties. 31% are lefty on righties, and then 7, 7, and 2. Okay, great. What do you do with that? I don't know if you can do anything, just with this only, but I think this is an interesting tool to continue to look at and use. Specifically, lefty on lefties don't hit a ton of home runs, and I think we know that to be true statistically if you just look at history of the MLB. But righty on lefty, lefty on lefty, lefty on righty. That's a huge thing. Now, there's obviously more righty bats in the MLB, most likely. I don't know if that's true. I'm not going to say that. I don't know if that's true. I would assume there's more righty bats. Okay, so let's look at just starting pitchers. Just starting pitchers, it's very similar. Now, there's only been 439 home runs out of 697 this year that have been hit off of starting pitchers. So think Ballpark Pal pitchers. And it kind of mirrors the same thing. 35, 14, 35. Same idea. So what I was looking at is, do opposite handedness matter? How does that play in? So if we think about this in terms of opposite handedness, you have 40% of home runs coming from same handedness. And then you would have 60% of home runs coming from opposite. So there's a slight advantage, it would appear, over a sample of 439 games or homers, that opposite-handedness has a slight advantage as same-handedness, which we could maybe say is true. Okay, so let's move down over here. And again, I don't know if I'm going to come to any conclusions today. I just want you guys to think about things, maybe how I'm thinking, so you could kind of understand how I'm approaching this. Or if you want to use Ballpark Pal, use code Meisner for $10 off your yearly subscription. If you want to use him, you can kind of see how I look at the data, how the data could be useful. Okay, so if you think about the image I showed you where everybody had a letter grade, these are the home runs hit this year. Now, Q, I need to explain this. Q is sometimes Ballpark Pal does not have enough data on specifically new batters. So Cameron Meisner, for example, funny enough, at the beginning of the season was a new batter. He did not have information on him, so it was a question mark. He could not grade it. There was not enough data to grade it. So there were 37 home runs hit where a guy couldn't be graded. He had a question mark. And then 258 home runs that were not off the starting pitcher. I've only done this off of starting pitchers because starting pitchers, if we go back and look at the data, are the only ones that I've given actual grades, as you can see. If there is an X, it means it was not a starting pitcher. I could not have handicapped it. I didn't know what bullpen guy was going to be in. So if we look at the 402 home runs hit here, because 402 letter grades and then 37 non-letter grades for a total of 439 homers, which we see here. So again, starting pitchers using the letter grades. 6% of the home runs hit off starting pitchers were an A. Okay, That's good. That's reassuring that Ballpark Pal knows his stuff. Like if this was the highest, I'd say, Ballpark Pal, your information is not reliable. Guys who have a pitching matchup advantage are getting crushed. That doesn't make any sense. 11% of the home runs hit were Bs. 23s were Cs, 40% were Ds, and 18% were Fs. So if we look just at C, D, and F, that is 63, 73, 81. 81% of home runs hit off starting pitchers were hit by a batter who had a letter grade of C or worse. To me, that's important. To me, that is sizable. So as I look forward into this season, what I am going to start doing is really taking a look at these A and B guys. If I like an A and B guy, why do I like them? Is the price good enough to overcome the fact that only 17% of home runs are coming from one of these two categories? Is the wind blowing out at a small field in Chicago? And even though it's a B, I think there could be an advantage here for the batter, right? These are things that I'm considering. I don't have a conclusion to draw yet, but I do think it's worth noting that over 80% of home runs hit on starting pitchers were by batters who were graded a C, D, or F to the pitcher. In other words, they're a bad matchup for the pitcher, bet the batter. So this is good. This is good info. This means that Ballpark Pal is onto something. Okay, now let's go down to this one, range and count. We'll get to all that stuff later. There's a lot of stuff. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Oh, why am I sorry? This is fun. This is exciting. This is good stuff. Okay, so next I have the range. So if you think about, let me just pull this back up. Ballpark Pal. If you think about the home runs again, Francisco Lindor is an F for Aaron Nola, and he has a 12 on the home run multiplier. So you can see that like a 5 is good for Nola. Like Brent Batty is a great matchup for Nola. He's an A against Nola. Nola should dominate him, and there is a very insignificant chance that he hits a home run, right? As opposed to Lindor, Soto, and Alonso, who are all bad matchups for Nola with these home run multipliers of 12. So if we go back to the sheet, what I've done for the home run multipliers is I've grouped it in ranges. So 0.01 to 0.03 is in the 1 to 3 range. 0.28 to 0.3 is in the 28 to 30 range. I just moved the decimal points to make it easier to understand. So if we look at this is where it's a little bit fascinating to me. A bulk of the home runs, 40% of the home runs are coming from a range of 7 to 9. So if we go back over here, that would be Jesse Winker, Brandon Nimmo, and Tyrone Taylor, which, if I'm being honest, when I've looked at this, I've really focused heavily on these bigger numbers, these red numbers, these numbers that say good for batter, bad for pitcher. And so far, that's not necessarily the best practice. Now, I think long-term, maybe it will shape out to be that way, but you can see the bulk of home runs is in this range, which is 69. I mean, add this up. This is actually crazy. What is this? 69 plus 20. 89, roughly 89%. A little less. 80, it's above 85. Between 4 and 12. Off of starting pitchers, the home run multiplier, 88% of home runs that have been hit have been guys who have been 4 to 12. So if we go back to here, 12, 11, 12, 7, 12, 8. So maybe that's what we need to think about, is the fact that this entire lineup is 4 to 12. So maybe that's just where 88% of the data falls. So it's really not that important. I don't, these are things that if I was doing this perfectly, I would maybe account for, but it's something to keep in mind. Okay. This is just a small portion of the data that I tracked. So then I said, okay, what if a guy, if we go back to this, oh heck, dude, I am choking. I'm choking. Let's, Lindor is an F and a 12. Both of those look good, but Winker's a C and a 7. How do these numbers correlate? Whereas Vinicius is a C and a 12. So these guys both rank C, but it looks like Vinicius has a better chance to hit a home run, while he is going to strike out more. Crap, you can't see that. let me increase this for you guys. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, he is possibly a higher strikeout risk. All right. A less of a walk risk, more of a hit risk, more of a home run hit. So my thinking was, how do these numbers correlate with each other? Like, okay, would I rather have a guy who's a C and let's just find another game and I can maybe give you a better example. Okay, so here, this is pretty close. Kyle Manzardo is a B, which says not good for him to hit a home run, but 11, pretty good for him to hit a run. Where Ramirez is a D and a 12. So Ramirez, in my eyes, gets a huge bump. But what about Steven Kwan? Because Steven Kwan is an F matchup for Clark Schmidt, which means Steven Kwan should do well tonight by the metrics, but his home run's .08. So is it better to have a B and a .11 or an F and a .08? Which one matters more? Does the letter grade matter more or the home run percentage matter more? All right, these are the questions that I want answered. So what I did in that instance was I ran a little chart and I said, how many home runs have been hit when the batter got an A and it was 0.1 to 0.3, 0. When the letter grade was A and it was 4 to 6, 17. When the letter grade was A and it was 7 to 9, 8. When the letter grade was A and it was 0.1 to 0.2, 2. So I've given you sort of a heat map of all of this information. So the most sort of profitable area is D, 7, 8, and 9. Those have been the most lucrative or the most frequent home runs out of anything. But if we look in terms of what my original question was, there have been 18 C's that fall in the 0.1 to 0.12 range and only 10 F's that fall in. So like worse matchup letter grade wise, but lower home run percentage. Better matchup for the pitcher, letter grade rise, higher home run percentage, 18 is more. So maybe you take a guy that's a C with a higher home run percentage as it relates to an F with a lower. Again, this data is flawed because it's only looking at the total amount of home runs hit, guys who have hit a home run. The better way to do this would be of all of the Fs in these grades, how many have hit? And you would want to come up with a percentage. You would want to say, okay, yes, 20% of the time C batters are hitting, right? I understand that. But for now, this is what I'm choosing to do, and I'm still getting information from it. The point is, I'm probably not going to play a lot of A guys moving forward, a lot of B guys moving forward. Because I think, this is kind of the lifeblood right in here. Higher Bs, 7 or above Bs, and then, these mid-range C, D, and F guys as it relates to all other factors that I consider, park and price and everything. So moving back up here, and I know this is a long video, but if you're loving it, who cares? You know what I mean? I now wanted to look at how all of this relates when the batter and the pitcher are same and different handedness, as we talked up here. So if we look at A grades, there have been 15 home run hits by A batters when the pitcher and the batter had the same handedness. So you can see 27 total A home runs hit, 15 and 12, that adds up to 27. So as it relates to the A, there was no, and all this data is going to get better as we get a bigger sample. But as of now, if a guy's rated A, I don't care if he's the same, if he's right-handed versus right-handed, left-handed versus right. It doesn't matter. None of that is important. It's not showing up in the data. But when you look at B, now we're seeing double. So if a batter is a B, but he's batting the opposite, like you got a left-handed pitcher and he's a right-handed batter, double the amount of home runs. C, small advantage for different. D, moderate advantage for different. And then F, moderate advantage for different. So that is good to see as it relates to the data. I'm interested to see if, as the year goes on and the sample gets bigger, if we're going to see the same disparity in A. It is a little weird that A has more same, nobody else does, but there's only 27 samples versus 46 and above. So I'm sure that will increase as we go. As it relates to, batters not in the starting lineup, not against starting pitchers, just bullpen guys, it's 94 to 164, so that's good. And then the question mark guys, this is incredibly interesting. Guys that Ballpark Pal could not grade because there wasn't enough data, 29 had the same handedness, only 8 had different. So again, I'm interested to see how these move on throughout the year, but that's the data I have. Now, as it relates to the same thing with scores, the home run percentages, again, low percentages, 7 versus 5, and then you see, for the most part after that, until you get down here, the different handedness reigns supreme. So 102 when guys are 7 to 9 versus 74 when they are the same handedness. Then I put these on a heat map, and this will be the last thing I talk about, and then I'll let you go enjoy your day. And maybe if you guys like this kind of stuff, I'll be able to do a video every month or every 2 months, just kind of recapping some of this information. So this first chart is same handedness. So this is only looking at data where the batter is right-handed and the pitcher is right-handed, or the batter is left-handed and the pitcher is left-handed. This is only for starters in Major League Baseball. This does not account for relievers. Okay, so this is using that 439 number. So if we look here for same-handed hitters, again, we see kind of a replication of this larger chart, which is all batters. Sorry, I'm going to get this figured out. There we go. So again, use this how you want if you want to use this at all, but for the most part, it mirrors this. For the different handedness, different batters, you do see a slight increase in a lot of these areas, as you would probably expect, especially in this C to F range. What if we sum those? What if we sum this kind of hot zone, 159, and then we sum this hot zone, 123. Okay, so 123 home runs hit by same handedness in the same metrics, whereas there's 159 by these metrics in different handedness. So I do think different handedness matters, and I think it's showing that with the data so far. So what can you take from this? If you choose to take anything, it is, Ballpark Pal is a great tool. It's a phenomenal tool, and it's a very affordable tool. And I'm not just saying that because if you use my code, you can save $10 and it puts money in my pocket. Of course not. I'm saying that this is very helpful, but I don't know if I would blindly trust it. And so what I'm trying to do is use this tool, which I use every day, and refine it and get to a point where I say, okay, I'll play Kyle Manzardo at B and 11 because if we go down here to different handedness, B and 11, right? We're sitting at 7 home runs hit on the year. That's pretty good, as opposed to 5 with same handedness. It's still in the hot zone of 20 batters have hit home runs from this metric this year, right? So this is kind of, and my head was in the way the whole time. But you see, so Manzardo would fall into this category right here, 7. Same handedness by the same tokens are 5, and then overall, 20, whatever. The bottom line is Ballpark Pal is great. I love Ballpark Pal, but I am choosing to refine this data a little more. And as we go throughout the year, my plan is to continue to refine this data and to come to conclusions that I hope will make me profitable and hopefully you guys profitable as well. So more data to come, more info to come. I love home runs. I love you guys, and we will see you. We'll see you tomorrow. So far, only 1 home run up to, dang it, Benintendi hit one. Definitely considered Benintendi today. I mean, let's go look. Let's go look at what Benintendi was today, because I looked at him. Oh, man, that sucks. That sucks. You see, Benintendi was a D- and a 5. Let me see if it was against Walker Buehler, though. Because if it wasn't against Walker Buehler, then we just have to shake it off, because we can't control. It wasn't against Walker Buehler. It wasn't against Walker Buehler. It was against Aroldis Chapman. Wow. So we can't be too upset because technically this was off of a reliever. So we can't be too upset. But Benintendi was certainly a guy that I looked at. What about Rob Refenschneider? He was a C-, one of the better, or I guess worst matchups for Jonathan Cannon. Is Cannon a lefty or a righty pitcher? Let's go see if he's a lefty or a righty. I'm giving you some behind-the-scenes extra stuff. Let's find Jonathan Cannon. Jonathan Cannon is a righty pitcher, so righty on righty. May not have played it, but there you go. Okay, so we're not going to worry about it. Hopefully tomorrow we come back, we're positive. But yeah, that's that. Talk to you. When will I talk to you guys? Tomorrow.